Welcome to the Open to Hope Show. I'm your host, Dr. Heidi Horsley, and I'm here today talking about one of my favorite topics that I'm very passionate about, sibling loss. And our show today is on the sibling I can't forget, tools to survive a sibling loss. And I'm here with three people that are experts in this because they've all had a very lived experience, and now they work with siblings and have written books about sibling loss, etc. So I'm going to start off by introducing them, and then we will start our show. So right next to me is a guest that we just had on a podcast a couple of years back, and her name is Dr. Parul Dua Makkar. And Parul's path forever changed after the devastating loss of her younger brother, Dr. Manu Duo, to oral cancer. Parul is a practicing dentist, author, and grief coach. She is the author of Life Interrupted, Dr. Duo's Survival Guide, which she has right here, and Stories of Friends and Family Lost. She has given numerous podcast and television interviews, and her book was featured in Times Square, New York City on a billboard, which I think is really cool, Parul, that happened. So you've got your books with you, and we will also show them. Next to her is Jordon Ferber. Hello, Jordon.
How are you?
Good, thank you. Jordon's been on quite a few shows and podcasts, and he's back, which we're happy about.
I basically live backstage here.
Absolutely. So Jordon is a stand-up comic, comedian, podcaster, and public speaker. His brother Russell was killed in a car accident at 21 years old. Jordon is a co-chapter leader for the Compassionate Friends Manhattan chapter and facilitates a lot of workshops at the national conferences. He also hosts the popular podcast, Where is the Grief? So everybody out there, Where's the Grief is a great podcast to listen to. He and his family run the Russell Ferber Foundation, which provides scholarships to the Culinary Institute of America and produces a yearly comedy benefit show. And what do I want to say about that, Jordon?
It's coming up. Our 21st year next year is going to be outstanding again. You can go to russellferberfoundation.org to find out more about what we do.
It is wonderful. I go to them every year. He brings the most amazing comedians, and you give such a great shout out for Russell, and you have phenomenal photos of the two of you together. Highly recommend going. And next to Jordon is Keith Singer. He's another regular here, which I love that he's back. So
Hello.
Keith facilitates Compassionate Friends monthly sibling meetings for Staten Island. And he lost his sister Lori in an automobile accident at the age of 18 while she was active duty serving in the U.S. Navy. He also moderates panels and facilitates workshops at the National Compassionate Friends conferences. Keith is a certified Kessler grief educator. And you also facilitate one of the more popular workshops. It's a sibling panel for parents, which I love because I love to educate our parents. So welcome, everybody.
Good to be here.
Thank you.
So I think we'll start out by just getting a really short story about your sibling and how they died so that because what I notice if I don't start that way, sometimes people are wondering what the backstory is.
Sure. So, first of all, thank you so much for having me. And I read when we had the podcast, it was right after Manu's loss, and I consider myself a global nomad. I've lived in different countries, so I was very alone, and that's what got me to reach to programs like yours. But Manu was a dentist. He'd followed my footsteps into dentistry and became a dentist like myself. And he died of oral cancer, which was discovered late, lesion on his tongue, and which I think at that time he was in his early 30s, and no 30-year-old wants to think they have cancer when you're healthy otherwise. And unfortunately, he passed away in 2021. The cancer was removed in 2019, but it reoccurred in 2020, right around the time of COVID. And he was in Canada, I was here in the US, borders shut down. It was, unprecedented times, no handbook inside, it was craziness. And in the midst of that, he wrote a series of blogs because there was no other outlet to channel his grief of what his body was going through, which I published posthumously. And it was my way to share his story. And with that came the education on oral cancer. Here's a dentist who died of oral cancer, knowing what it is and how we need to be more diligent about it. And that led to the Do a Good Job oral cancer course. And just yesterday, and I'm kind of excited to announce this because Do a Good Job is now a trademark name that we got the patent yesterday.
and I love that. Okay, so he had blogs he wrote, and I know he was a very positive person.
Yes.
Because I remember this from our podcast. And you took his blogs and made them into a book.
Correct. And I
which
completed.
I love.
And I wrote the epilogue. So the epilogue is my view on how he was, how he got, how he followed me, how we grew up in different parts of the world, and how he became the person that he was beyond the cancer word. He talked about cancer. I talked about him. So, yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you, Parul. And Jordon, tell us a little bit about Russell.
Yeah, my brother Russell, he was killed in a car accident in July of 2002. It was July 4th weekend when he died. He was 21 years old. He was just about to graduate from the Culinary Institute of America. He was in the pastry program there, and he was a dynamic human being. I think he lived more in 21 years than most people live in a lifetime. At 13 years old, he was friends with the Knicks. He had a business card at 13 that said "the little man with the big mouth."
I love it. That's
and he was a hustler and a go-getter. And I think I think my family's done a really great job, not just of making sure that we don't forget him, but making sure other people don't forget him. I think that's kind of been the big part for us, is to continue to talk about him, to keep him a part of our lives, and to find ways to keep remembering and using his energy and his spirit to propel ourselves forward. He was like I said, really a dynamic person. So try to live up to that and make sure that we also get people our names out there as well as his.
I love that. I feel like that's what the three of you do really well, is you're living your best life and getting the word out and keeping their memory alive and helping other people.
Yeah.
And so, Keith, what about you with Lori?
So Lori was 18. Actually, she passed away in a car accident. She was active duty in the Navy. She received her new orders. She was in Chicago, driving down to Mississippi, and she got into a car accident. I feel like Lori was similar to Russell, where she was the wild child. She was outgoing. She lived life to the fullest, pedal to the metal. I remember my parents got her a car before she even turned 17. Her and a friend took off, drove to Florida. They wanted to go down. They drove to Florida.
Russell's first car, the license plate said "Beat it." out of my way.
Yeah. So she was outgoing, and to say the least.
I love it. Do you know, I've known both of you two for so long, and I don't usually ask how they died,
right,
because we're here to talk about how they lived.
Right.
And so the only reason I did that is because I'm like, okay, the audience is going to want that story. But it's so interesting because, that's why we're here, is to figure out how to best live our own life and keep their memory alive, because the way they died is a moment in time.
Right.
Yeah.
What do you think, Parul, and for all of you, what is unique about sibling loss?
Well, in my case, he was my only sibling.
Yeah.
And so, to me, a sibling is somebody who travels alongside you in life. He watched me grow up and follow my profession. We talked about stuff. Those little intricacies of parents, the childhood stories, the nuances. Only a sibling gets it. And they walk parallel lives. You meet at these beautiful intersections of celebrations, and all of that is gone. And especially with an only sibling, it's like my parents were channeling their loss, and it's a collective loss as a child. But here I'm like, who do I tell that I lost my companion of life?
Yeah.
So it's very unique.
Is this resonating? Because a light bulb is going off in my head right now.
Yeah, for sure.
The three of you have lost your only sibling.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Which I didn't even think about until right now.
I still think that even, considering having gone to so many conferences, we've been around so many other siblings who still have a couple, surviving siblings, but it's still, it's like losing a limb that nobody else sees that you're missing. And your parents are so involved with their own grief, sometimes they don't even notice that you're going through things. People don't ask about your grief ever. I mean, one of the workshops that I present at National is, how's your mother? Which is the number one question that we get.
How's your mother? I love that.
So, no matter how many siblings you might have left, it's people still aren't asking you, how are you doing? It's still very isolating. I lost Russell I was 24. Nobody that I knew had lost a sibling. I didn't have anybody in my life that I could really turn to that had any answers or had a shoulder that they were willing to offer.
Yeah.
And nobody else really knows that dynamic. You know, sometimes you have other family members that that you need that buffer to be able to communicate as a unit. And so it's hard. I know, even just having lost my only sibling, I know that's the case. That, you know, I have an easier time dealing with my mother than my brother did, and Russell had an easier time manipulating my dad. I guess
This is
right, but there was that dynamic works because of what it is. So you take a piece out of it, and it wobbles. You know, you're not on solid ground anymore. You have to figure out how that unit moves forward without one of its key pieces. And so doesn't matter how many people are left. But as a sibling, I know that it's
almost like you've got a table with 4 legs, which a lot do, and you take one out. Well, it's no longer stable.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, like you said, he was good with your dad, and you were good with your mom.
Yeah.
Well, and then you take him out of it. That's a big void.
Right. And on top of that, I go to family events. You know, my parents at least have each other, and they have me, and I guess I have them. But it's still, there was nobody that understands the dynamic in the family. Nobody else understands how crazy my parents are. Nobody sees
Exactly.
that. So it's there was nobody to vent to about my parents.
Yeah.
I think that's what's missing in society is that the sibling relationship is such a unique one.
Yeah.
I feel like it's almost taken for granted where you expect them just to be there.
Right.
You know, you hear a lot of stories about, you know, sibling relationships may be complex, and but I think the assumption is always there is they'll always be there, right? You're going to live your whole life with them, and you know, maybe sometimes at different points in your life you're closer or maybe not as close, but I think the key underlying thing is you just take for granted, you expect that they'll always be there, and when they're not, it's such a life-rocking change. It's like, wait, I think maybe in the back of your mind you're hoping your parents live as long as possible, but you're kind of expecting at some point in life you may not have them. Where sibling, you're just like, oh, they'll always be there if I need them. And
Right.
and to Jordan's point, like that all the things that you take for granted of having that sounding board or having that person that you can bounce things off of or take some of the pressure off you, right? I think as an only child now, it's just a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
All that energy and focus of attention is on you now.
Well, most siblings will spend 80 to 100% of their lifetimes with each other.
Yeah.
Right?
And you just said something that's really interesting that I want to pick up on, Keith. The pressure. Okay, so, I have 2 sisters.
Right.
So I'm always very interested in you all because my brother, my only brother died, but I still have my sisters. That pressure of being the only person. And tell me a little bit about how that works in your own lives. Do you feel pressure? I mean, you're
Yes,
it. You're
it. And there's a lot of anger. And, to Keith's point, like, that you expect, especially a younger sibling. Mm-hmm. My brother was 7.5 years younger than me. I changed his diapers. Right. I did not expect to tell his stories at his funeral. I mean, that was just, you couldn't fathom it. So the whole dynamics changes. And when I was sitting at the table planning his funeral with my dad, I was a little bit older than when you guys lost your siblings, but it hit me, I'm going to have to do this again. Mm-hmm. And he's not there. And there's a lot of anger and frustration, like, this wasn't my life plan. You're supposed to be here.
Right.
You're such a typical little brother. You made me do all the work and you had fun and, you ran off. And now I'm left to do all the responsibilities. And especially as your parents are aging and you have other responsibilities that get added on. And things, like you said, my brother lived close 20 minutes from them. I live 7 hours on a flight from them. Mm-hmm. So any emergency, I used to count on him.
Yeah. I
don't have him to count on. And that wasn't the plan. So there's a lot of anger sometimes, and this sense of like, tag, you're it. There is no,
It's not even the pressure. It's not even just the pressure of taking care of them. It's also the pressure of what they now count on you for their lives. Like, I'm now the only person that can provide a grandchild. Mm-hmm. And having all that attention. In the beginning, I also felt like I was 10 years old again, like I had to ask permission to cross the street. They wanted to know where I was at all times. Mm-hmm. It was definitely a hard thing to adapt to. Obviously, you always have that back moment, thinking in the back of your mind, like, obviously, I don't want to die, but now I really can't die.
Right. Exactly. I remember getting in a head-on collision, and this is 10 years ago, and thinking my parents cannot lose another child. That was my focus.
Right.
It wasn't on me. Right. Because you're like we can't die. They've already been through the death of a child, and for you all, you're the only surviving sibling. They're only surviving child for them.
Yeah, it's on my mind every time I get on an airplane. Every time I get in a car, I'm thinking, maybe some of the changes were for the better. I drive a little safer and closer to the speed limit, so that's maybe a positive. But I think ultimately it does weigh heavy on the mind. I can't die, right? Because I know what it would do to my parents.
So you're even being more cautious than you would have if your sister hadn't died. And I'm also thinking about something else now that you're all talking. Are you all the oldest child?
I was the oldest, yeah.
Okay, so I'm the oldest also. So this is a whole other piece because not only did we think we were going to live 80 to 100%, but we thought we would die before our younger sibling.
Right.
So you're all the oldest in this situation, which is another interesting thing.
Yeah. And, I was like a second mom to him. And there's a point that was made, like how you become closer at different stages of life. So we were so far apart, different genders, different friends, different interests, that we grew up 2 different lives with 2 different sets of parents, because our parents were older when they had him versus me. But now was the point where we were connecting, same profession, traveling together.
You're both dentists?
Both dentists, and we would talk about cases, and we got close again. And he was gone. Yeah.
So I'm wondering about, since we're talking about tools, I had to think about what we were talking about because we've got some really good stuff here. I'm like, tools to survive a sibling loss. How did you survive? How did each of you survive initially?
I had a lot of panic attacks.
Okay.
And because I was scared of what tomorrow would bring, something that was so definite, having my sibling for the rest of my life was no longer a possibility. So I knew I had to fight for myself. If I didn't, nobody else would. And I think the book really helped because he gave it to me and I walked into his house and everything was the same. And there was so much anger there again because it's like, why is the world spinning? Why is the sun shining? Don't you know my world stopped? I need to step out and I just need to figure out what happened, because my life just shattered. And that's where the title comes in, and he called it a survival guide. So Dr. Dua's survival guide. But that was it. I couldn't do anything to help him, save him, as a dentist, as a sister, because of all the challenges. So writing this book, he died in March. This book was published in August that same year, within 4 months.
And I love that it was called the survival guide. Was there anything in it that helped you? I bet there was a lot. I mean, I know he was a very optimistic person.
He was. And he knows that he's like, tomorrow's not promised to anybody. So why do you live your life in fear of when mistakes and challenges, they're to improve you, and just have to get on the other side of fear. And there's just lots of
I like that.
Great,
getting on the other side of fear.
Yeah. And there's just lots of great, and everywhere he's like, I know how all these extra social and all these things pull you, but it's to just reflect. And he talks about self-work, inner work, rather than the outer side. Because he's like, I can't control the outside. I can only control my mind.
Right. Love that.
Yeah.
So what about you, Jordon, about tools to survive a sibling loss?
I think the biggest tool that I've used is creating community for myself. I think that's probably my biggest thing. I'm a stand-up comedian. I've been doing comedy for about 24 years. I was about a year and a half into it when Russell died. I threw myself into comedy. The comedy community propped me up a fair amount. Comedians are not necessarily known for their strong mental health. Comedy is like one of the few places where you can openly talk and joke about mental health issues. So, I threw myself into that and I became very friendly with a lot of other people that were dealing with various stages of their own traumas and things that they were frustrated with life about. And I started going to the Compassionate Friends. Having a community of other bereaved siblings, I think was maybe the only thing that was really helpful to deal with this stuff head on. Finding ways to talk about it in ways that felt normal. Normalizing the conversation I was able to have about grief was a key thing, because once you talk to people that are going through a similar thing, that's when you realize, all the things that I'm dealing with and doing are relatively normal and par for the course, rather than having a lot of self-doubt and heaping self-judgment or shame on myself for how I'm actually doing, because it's hard. I don't know why we don't have any experience with this, but society expects us to be good at it right out of the gate.
Yeah.
So it's nice to be reminded that it's hard. I'm allowed to be a mess, and I have people that I can talk to and vent to and cry with when I need to, and joke with when I need to.
Yeah. And like you said, it being around other people that have had siblings die normalizes what you're going through. You feel like I'm not alone. I'm not going crazy. This stuff I'm dealing with is normal.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what about you, Keith?
For me, I think it's a long road and it's an ongoing journey, right?
Yes.
I think first and foremost, it was figuring out how to brush my teeth, right? Step by step, walk, right? They could wake up in the morning and, learning how to now live life without my sister. So I think that was a big thing, and I think people need to realize that it's going to take you time. Life is now different, and accepting that, I think, is a hard first one to get through. But from there, I think it was then the next one was trying to figure out some of the things that would help fill that hole, whether it be surrounding myself around with others that have also lost a sibling. I can't explain why, but there's something about being around others that get it. And then finding other things, right? Coming and talking about it. I don't know this wasn't my personality. It wasn't something that I thought I would ever find myself doing, but just finding different things I found, whether it be helping others, talking to others, help fill that hole and help keep my sister's memory alive. I think finding one of the tools, I guess I know you asked specifically for tools, it's finding the things that help fill that hole and help keep their memory alive, and I think that's important.
I like this. I think that's one of our reasons for being here for siblings, is to keep our brothers and sisters' memories alive for people that didn't know them.
Right.
I mean, my kids know my brother and they've never met him because I'm constantly telling stories about it, their Uncle Scott. So I love this, and I love the identity piece. It's like figuring out who we are now that our brothers and sisters are not here.
Right.
Because for a while, it's like an identity loss. It's like, who am I? I'm not Scott's sister anymore.
I'm not the older brother.
Yeah, you're an only child.
Half my identity was being an older brother, and I'm sure, like you said, like you were talking about parenting, I kind of felt that way as well with me.
Yeah.
Always being the overburdened, probably older brother that I'm sure she didn't love all the time, but that was my identity, was making sure she was stayed in line and not getting into too much trouble.
Mm-hmm. And you're right about keeping their memory alive, because none of our siblings had kids. Right. So there is no little ones that remind those little things, and we don't get to create more memories. So creating a foundation, doing something, and honoring and keeping that legacy of your family.
Yeah.
And he coined that term, do a good job. So
I love it. I love it. So, what advice would you have out there for people that have lost a brother or sister?
Find your way to honor them. It doesn't have to be public or private. It doesn't have to be big. It's just something for you to remember them with. And really, I feel like people die twice. Once when physically die, and once when we stop remembering them. So as long as you
I've
keep
actually heard it's three. I have three.
What's
you
it
die
then?
You die when your physical body dies. You die when the last person who knew you dies. And you die for a final time when the last person who says your name out loud dies.
That's true. So once you stop remembering,
Yeah.
So just to, and I think community is so important. And I'm a dentist, and I don't think in our field we talk about losing. You get 9 months to prepare for a child to come into the world, but when death happens, especially mine was cancer, but when a sudden death happens, you don't have a way to prepare for it, and it takes time. So give yourself that grace and find your people.
I love it.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly what it is. Give yourself grace is the hardest part, I think, because like I said, we feel like we're doing it wrong. I think that the things that I try to remind myself constantly is that I'm allowed to do this the way that I do it. I'm allowed to take my time and do it in the time that I do it, and I don't have to be good at it the first few times. Like I'm allowed to fail at this. And the attempt is as important as the result, because every day is its own battle, and I'm open to the possibility that tomorrow will suck less.
I like
That's
that.
sort of one of my mantras, because I feel like you have a day that maybe you feel like you did great, you have some progress, and then the next day knocks you back down again.
Yeah.
That's how it goes. Just try to remember that the day that it went well is possible again.
I like that, because people get stressed out when they go backwards and they think, is it going to keep
Right.
going back?
Yeah.
I think for me, it was learning that just sharing what has worked for me, what hasn't worked, could help somebody else. I think it's important to know that just sharing, again, what's worked, what hasn't worked with other people actually can help. So if there's a story out there of somebody that didn't think there was no way that I would be able to help somebody, and just being able to be yourself and talking to others, getting involved in like self-help groups, or where you get to talk to other people that haven't lost. Right. Just sharing your experiences could help somebody, and so.
Well, I love this, and it just dawned on me again. I keep getting these like revelations. We all were blindsided. We all lost our brothers and sisters quickly, and weren't expecting it, and weren't prepared for it. Not that you're ever prepared, but right. So you're all great examples of the fact that we can find hope again, and it is a journey, and it does have setbacks, and we have to be patient with ourselves and have grace and get support. So where do people find you? There's going to be siblings out there that need this information, and where can they find you?
So my website, Parul Dua Makkar, but also on Instagram at DUA Good Job. I'm pretty active on there, so yeah, reach out.
I love it. Thank you. Jordon?
Well, I do stand-up comedy, so you can always find a lot of my show's information on my Instagram, I guess, at Beatnik Nudnik. But also follow my podcast, Where's the Grief? I'm at Where's the Grief on Instagram, and where'sthegrief.com. You can find all the information there. I interview other people who have experienced tragic loss. I've had you on the show a couple times.
It's a great show.
I've had Keith on, and I'm about to put out my episode from this year's TCF conference. So that's going to be a lot of fun, and hopefully I'll get you on there soon.
Absolutely.
Love it.
And for me, the CompassionateFriends.org, probably look for the Staten Island chapter of the loss of a sibling, or also I facilitate on a Facebook private group. It's Sound of the Siblings. So.
Yes, that's a great Sounds of the Siblings on Facebook. Really wonderful group to join if you're out there and if you're a sibling.
And if you're looking for more sibling support, siblingisland.com will take you to the website that TCF maintains of all of our sibling meetings that happen on Zoom, and you can find support where we have weekly meetings for sibling support on Zoom.
Thank you. That's important to know. So there's a lot of resources out there on Zoom. So I want to thank all of you today for being on. This was great, so important. I think that we are a lifeline for people that are not as far down the road, and we're normalizing a lot of what we're going through for people. So thank you so much, and you all know how I close this. So I always like to say, if you've lost hope, please lean on ours until you find your own. Thank you.